Hi everyone, welcome to Google Developers Live. My name's Ali and today we're going to be talking about the Google Drive SDK. We have a slightly special show today. We have a guest star, Gerwin Sturm is joining us from Austria, and the show really is going to be about his experiences using Google Drive SDK for website hosting. This is a feature we recently launched and is proving popular, so we thought we'd get Gerwin in, and he's kindly agreed to come to see us today to talk about his experiences. So, Gerwin, firstly, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yep,
secondly, do you want to just take it away and tell us a bit about your application, and then talk as much as you like, and if we have questions, we'll ask the questions.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually coming from the Google Plus developer side, really, and I've been playing a lot with the History API lately. And now the thing with the History API is that you need a public URL which you can share, and that was sort of a problem because if you have dynamic moments which you just create yourself, you need to create the page which you can share yourself, and so the Google Drive hosting became perfect for this. And so one extension which I've been working on is one to take screenshots of Hangouts. So I'm just gonna go dive right in and screen share and show you how it looks. So let's see, start the screen share. So I'm not sure if it's visible, but actually what I did, I'm using this as a Chrome extension, and I added a screenshot button up here, and when I click this now, it will start some stuff. So it actually takes the screenshot and then uploads the image to Google Drive and uploads the index.html to Google Drive and sets the folder to public so it can be shared. And when this is all done, I'm gonna switch over here. So this is the Google Plus history, which is in developer preview still, and actually this is now a new screenshot added here, which is linked from Google Drive. So this whole page, including the image, has been created dynamically and uploaded to Google Drive. And let's see, so that's actually, as you can see, that's Google Drive host. And probably the best thing to show you what I'm doing is where's my source? So here's my source. So as I said, this is a Chrome extension. So on the one side, I just have the inject script which adds the screenshot button on top and have some functions, and then on the on-click event, I'm actually getting the video information and sending it to my background script with a message. And then the real stuff happens inside of the background script, because there I have, when I receive the message, what I'm doing here is I'm actually, so the thing is, with the, with the Hangout, when I get the images, I actually get two images. I get the main video and get the thumbnails on the bottom as two separate images. So what I'm doing here, I'm stitching together in a canvas the two images, and then I actually create and upload the information. So what I'm doing, I have one parent folder in my drive. I'm just gonna show you the drive folder. So I have one parent folder here where I have all the subfolders. So the parent folder is always the same, so I try to retrieve the same folder and add everything in there so I don't mess up all the whole root of the drive with all the folders. So the main folder is private and all the folders inside are shared, as you can see, probably. So once I have this folder, so what I'm doing here, I'm using just normal XML HTTP requests in JavaScript to communicate with the drive. So where's the get parent folder? Let's see. So I'm actually that's just a search query. So I'm just doing a search for a Hangout Moments folder with the folder drive type, and because I'm using the Drive API just with the, where's the scope? So I'm just using the drive.file scope, so I only have access to the folders I created in the application myself. So I only get this one folder back so I don't get any other Hangout Moments folder which you might have created yourself. The only problem with this is if someone renames the folder, I don't find it, and then I just create a new folder, which is just, where's the create folder? There's a create folder again, just an XML HTTP request where I just have my OAuth token and I just create a folder with the name in it and send it to the Drive API.
Okay.
So once I have this folder, I'm actually creating a new folder just for this moment. So I'm having Hangout moment and add the date to it. As you can see, that's one of the subfolders in here. And then I set this folder to public, which again is just really simple requests, all of them. Where's to set public? So I'm actually just setting row reader type anyone, and what I do is I just set it to anyone with a link, because at least as far as I have understood it, this. So just asking you, when I set it to anyone with a link, it won't be indexed. This is correct.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. Because I saw in your documentation you always said to set it to public, but I noticed it actually works with anyone with a link as well.
That's right. So anyone with the link is actually public. Just
yeah, but it's not indexed.
It's not exposed. Exactly as you say.
Yeah, so because the thing is, why I set it to anyone with a link, because I don't want anyone to find it in search easily, because it's still supposed to be, because moments are actually supposed to be private, but you have to use a public URL for it. So I use the anyone with a link to work around that.
I see, that solves that pretty well.
So let's see, I'm just going back to my screen share.
So yeah, you've created the site. How do you share that back with Plus?
Yeah, so what I just gonna, so actually when I have the moment, wait, screen share, there's the screen share. So in the moments here, when I have saved it, I can actually share this to my stream if I want.
I see.
Because the moments are private, so there's a private moment which I just keep for myself and then say, oh, that's a nice moment, I want to share that out to the public or anyone else really, which at the moment only works for people who are also signed up for the history API preview. But then again, to get it into here, so once I uploaded it, where's my source? So actually what is it? I'll take the image and upload the image, and then I just create some HTML with some schema.org markup, because that's what the history API likes, to extract the information. So I just create the HTML and upload this as index.html. And once I have the folder ID which I can use, I have this URL which I can share. And actually the right moment to the history API again is just an XML, an HTTP request really, which just goes to the moments API and says I want to add this URL as moment, and that's about it really. So it's just a lot of requests going back and forth.
Okay, that's really awesome. So just a step back then. So we've got this app that actually takes screenshots of your Hangouts, okay, saves them to Google Drive, makes them publicly available to people with the link. And
then I take the link and share and add this link to my history, so I have all in one place together.
Okay, and then obviously it doesn't spam your stream. You can share that out with people however you like.
Exactly. That's the idea behind the history.
Okay, that's one of the great things about that. Okay, that's really great. So do you mind if I ask you a few questions? I've just taken a few notes here. Firstly, your app is entirely in JavaScript, is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. So what the components you're using? Well, you had this background script running. Do you want to tell me why you picked that, or why? Were there any other alternative ways you thought of doing it?
So actually, I thought it was cleaner because there's one thing with the Chrome extension is that actually getting OAuth authentication isn't all that easy. What I'm using to get the OAuth working is I used the client library by Boris Moose, who did an OAuth extension for Chrome extensions.
I see.
Because the problem is you need to have, when you do client-side authentication, the problem is the callback into your Chrome extension can't be called because of the way the Chrome extension is bundled up. And so what happens is you actually do sort of a server-side flow, but then you intercept the server-side flow from the Chrome extension to get the key back into your extension. So it's sort of a workaround to make it work in Chrome extension. Okay. It works, but it's maybe not the cleanest way to do it.
And were you able to just use that without modification?
So you actually have to define your own redirect URI. So you have to have some file which you couldn't probably also host on Google Drive, really, because you need to have a content script which waits for the callback to come onto the site, and then you just fetch the key from there. So, but that's the only modification you have to use.
Okay, cool. Where do you host that?
So this one I host on my own server, but it just has to be some file somewhere. Because, wait, I'm just going to show you the manifest file of the extension, really. If I find it. Is it this? Yeah, that's... where's my screen share? So what I do here is, in the manifest I have... here you have the URL for the callback. This is actually this is the source which is up on GitHub already. That's why I have this one left free. And so actually when I come to this callback, I have another content script which takes the token from the callback. And with this I get it back. Then I have the access token inside of the extension which I can use further.
Okay, very cunning. And I hadn't actually even thought about that. And the fact that you're using a Chrome extension rather than a Hangout API, that's something that I would wonder why. Is there a reason you're doing that?
Yeah, so the problem with the Hangouts API is that at the moment it doesn't allow access to the video information. So you can't read image information from the stream. So that's why I'm doing it outside.
I see.
And so that's actually some work that Mohammed Mansour did before me, who figured out, okay, you actually have two video objects in there, and you can get from these two video objects, you get the data URI, and then you can just use the data URI whatever you want.
I see.
So I'm just...
Sorry, go on. I was saying, so it's just streaming pictures, and you're just grabbing the image yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
And then I'm stitching it together in a canvas, and then I'm taking the data URI and just upload it as base64 stream.
Right.
So for the file uploads, I'm using multi-part upload and just have the file information and then all the base64 encoded data in there.
So, how did you find using the Drive API in this way? Was it acceptable? Is there anything you'd like us to improve with that?
So it's just, as I said, it's just a simple request, really. So the only thing I had to get around was understanding how the multi-part upload was working with the boundaries you have to define, and I had to, but it's not really difficult, I would say.
Right. Okay. Great. How big are these images?
Yeah. So those are actually, I can just quickly check on Drive. So in this case I have, where does it say the size? Let's see, okay, that's actually 800 kilobyte.
Okay.
Depends on really the size of your screen because it
grows.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome.
And actually I'm uploading the image and the index HTML with the information in there, so I'm uploading two files to the directory.
And that's cool. That's where you insert the schema.org metadata, right, in your index. Can you talk a bit more about that?
So I'm actually probably just gonna show you how it looks like because it's easier. Let's go back here, and I'm just taking the where is it? View page source. So actually what you have here, you have actually a type. In this case I probably could have found a better type, but Thing is the most generic type to use. And then I have defined the name of the moment I want to have. I have the item prop image, and I have a description. And depending on what moments you write, you can actually add more information there. For example, if you have a place, you could add geocode in there, and if you have something like an event, you can add date information in there. And so actually what happens when you add the moment to the Moments API, what happens is that a Googlebot comes and tries to read information from the site, and so it looks for the schema.org markup first, but when it doesn't find it, it will try to find other ways. It just takes the page title. It's actually quite good at finding the information, but if you want to make sure that just the information you want is in there, you will want to use the schema.org markup.
Okay, cool.
And there's actually pretty good documentation about this on the history API place on the Developers Plus
You
page.
sound surprised.
Well, the pages have gotten much better recently
great.
since we launched the developers.google.com. Before, some of the, especially the old data APIs, G-data APIs, there the documentation sometimes isn't all that perfect.
Great, thank you for that feedback. I'll pass that on. That will make some people happy.
So now, Ali, speaking of the Google Plus History API, we've gotten some good feedback on the YouTube page from William Bryan. He commented that as long as the images are under 2048 by 2048 size cap, you can go ahead and snap those away. Apparently, when you exceed that resolution, they're unavailable for snapping. And he also commented in terms of the Google Plus History API, you can actually set your moments to be shared with explicit circles. So if you have a group with elevated permissions, they too can see your history moments. So I think Gerwin had mentioned that you have them private first, share later. You can obviously select a small group, be it your family or your best friends, to see things that the full public could not see.
Yeah, so but those actually will appear on your profile page, so they're not shared to your stream, but I can actually, I'm just going to show you, it's easier. Awesome. What you have when you share the moment with, so in the history API, if I have the sources, and I have I have lots of stuff in there. Actually, I can define here, I want the Hangout moments to be shared with, let's say, I share with public. So what happens when I do this? Let's just save. When I go to my profile, I actually have here, when I'm in the profile, I have a moments tab here. And here, actually, it should show, no, it doesn't. Other, let's see. Yeah, and so it actually now displays those moments on my profile page. So it still doesn't share to the stream, but I can define, okay, public or just some friends are able to view my Hangout moments at all times. So as you see, I did some testing in the past. That's why I have lots of moments in there already.
That's great. That I think, as Lewis says, family and close friends, that's a pretty good use case for that. So awesome.
So, but this is still in developer preview, so not out for the public just yet. You have to talk to the Google Plus team when they will launch it. I have no idea, but I like playing around with it.
Oh yeah, we notice you like playing around with the stuff. So
yeah.
So tell me, what does the future hold for this application? Do you know how many users you have at the moment?
No, so actually at the moment I have no users at all because it's not published, because the history API is in developer preview. So it doesn't make much sense to, so it's actually not meant to be out for users. So I have the source code on GitHub. If anyone wants to check it out, you can just load the extension as an unpacked extension and start using it. It works if you have signed up for the developer preview.
Okay, cool. And I guess it's the code is open source. So I think it would be a pretty useful sample application for anyone who wants to do any of those many components. Either grab a screenshot of a Hangout, or upload a file and share it to Google Drive, and then the last part, which isn't available at the moment. So having sniffed through the code, I'm going to recommend that if you have got a pure client application, and remembering that you can use the Google Drive API with a pure client application, even to upload and download files, I would check that out if you're doing that, because it's a good source for that. Okay, awesome. So anything extra to add for us? Any final tips? Any things you'd like us to improve with the API?
Yeah, so actually the thing with Chrome extensions is that you can't use the client libraries just yet, because there's some troubles with security policies which prevent using the client libraries, because as you saw, I had all those XML HTTP request source code in there, and if I would just use a client library, it would look much cleaner and easier to use, but it's not difficult to use that way. But it would be nice if the client libraries would work in combination with the Chrome extensions at some point, but I think there's already an issue at the client library code project.
That would be the perfect situation.
Yeah.
I won't make more comment than that, but yeah, that would be perfect.
And as I said, the authentication is still a bit difficult to do, and I think you already have, I think there was a Hangout some days ago where they showed that for packaged apps, you already have this identity framework in Chrome extensions, but actually, so that most problems are not Drive related, but actually the around that you can't use Chrome extensions with authentication, and
Okay.
that's a bit of a problem. But
Okay, sure.
the Drive API is actually quite good, but to get the authentication working and to get it working in extensions, for example, is a bit of a hassle at the moment. But
that makes perfect sense. And from an ideal point of view, from your app, would you rather this was available to use in the Hangouts API, or would you rather write the Chrome extension?
No, I actually would love to have it inside of the Hangouts API, which is something I already told to the Google Plus developers several times,
Right.
which would be nice, because that way because at the moment there's a lot of hacky stuff going on to actually extract the information from the DOM, because I'm also extracting the participant's name from certain diffs, and so when the layout changes, this breaks, so it would be cleaner to have one API call to actually be able to access this information.
So from an external point of view, that would seem cleaner. You could just ask for the token using the client library you could authorize for Drive and Hangouts.
Because the client library works inside of Hangout applications, and with Hangout applications you already have taken care of all the authentication, because you can add extra scopes to the Hangout application. So you could just add the Drive scope to the Hangout application, wouldn't have to ask the user another time for the authentication. So everything would be a lot more secure, I would say, and cleaner.
Okay, awesome. We're all for cleaner, more secure code. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us. If you've got nothing else to add, I'll say goodbye.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. It's been really great to talk to you. Someone using the product, and as always, we're here for feedback, and if anyone else has any questions or any good ideas or looking to implement something using the Drive API or the Google Drive website hosting, please get in touch with us or follow Galvin on his Google+. He's always posting little information and useful snippets.
Or Legos.
Yeah, or Legos, of course. So we'll look forward to seeing that when it's built. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. See you next time.